Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Thursday, November 10th, 2022, and this is episode number 462 of a show where you join me with my family here on our small farm and homestead as we grow all around. And the title of today's show is Why You Can't Squat. And what you can do to change that. And, the reality is, yeah, chances are you can't squat. And I can't really squat either. You know, the, there's just, I we're going to get into why I'm so fascinated with this topic and why I'm so fascinated with this with this particular movement in just a little bit. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is take a moment and mention the show sponsors. First of all, first and foremost, York Meadow Farm, where we create small batch fermented foods and bath and body products, clean and natural bath and body products with all natural oils, scented with nothing but pure essential oils, and colored with nothing but botanicals and clays. Nothing other than that, pure, natural, just the way we like it, just the way for your family. And if you are using bath and body products, consider checking out what we have to offer over at York Meadow Farm. And if you are a listener to the podcast, that is in audio form, you know what the discount code is. Since I'm streaming, there's a little bit of a caveat with that. So if you want some discount codes, you can check out the newsletter at yorkmeadowfarm.com/newsletter. Sign up for that, where we send out monthly updates, which, as a matter of fact, I am behind on, where we, give some insight into everything that's going on here, a little bit of an update from the past month, what's coming up for the next month, and a little bit of an update as far as what's going on up front in the market gardens and with everything that Cody manages here. So check that out, yorkmeadowfarm.com. Sign up for the newsletter where you will get discounts. And if you want even greater discounts, then join the Telegram group at t.me/all around growth, and you will get some insight into even more discounts. I would also like to thank Food Forest Farm for providing the ability to stream the show in the way that we are and provide some additional change to the podcast. For those of you who have listened over time, the podcast has been uh, very much something that has uh, embraced change and transition because this is my show. Uh, I very much embrace change and transition, always have throughout life. I very much think that the only constant in life is change, and I think that personally, that's been a good way to go about life, and having a bit of a fluid mindset has led to some excellent experiences and ultimately some basically what you're experiencing now, kind of vicariously through me. And we'll get into that as we talk about the squat here in a little bit. But again, thanks to Food Forest Farm for making this stream possible. And for those of you who are listening out there in audio land, yes, you can check this out on YouTube after the fact if you like. Or for those of you who prefer watching videos in instead of an audio format for a podcast. I mean, we aim to please. So this is what we're doing, and it couldn't be possible without Food Forest Farms. So check them out for coffee. Check them out for the upcoming Squash Fest in 2023, and just engage over there for all sorts of interesting activities. You will not be disappointed. Now, the topic of today's show: why can't you squat? Well, the reality is, guys, I got so caught up in, you know, I got so caught up in walking down memory lane in researching my own history and fascination of the squat. So let's just look at, this question in pre-search: and why can't I squat? Right? And let's see why you can't squat. Skill of strength. Let's see what they say. 7 common reasons you can't squat. Limited ankle dorsiflexion. Okay. Ankle dorsiflexion can be restricted for many reasons, but I'll go over a few of the most common. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. And we'll take a look at a few other things. So, this is what we're talking about when I'm talking about ankle dorsiflexion. Okay. And this contributes to the inability to squat. Okay. And then this lists reasons why we've got limited ankle dorsiflexion. All right. Tight calves, previous injury in the ankle, all of which I have, poor tissue quality around the Achilles tendon. There's some cool information here. Second reason why we can't squat: flat feet. Okay. Third reason why we can't squat: um, poor hip mobility. I'm definitely going to try to link to some of these articles as well in the show notes. But number 4, your squatting technique doesn't match your hip structure. Okay, all interesting photos. I'm going to personally talk about this as well. Number 5 reason you can't squat: you have a weak anterior core. Number 6 reason you can't squat: threat response. Your nervous system puts the brakes on this movement. That's something else I've read a little bit about. And if I can keep this in mind, I will mention that in recent, with my most recent, uh, in research on why I have this limited ankle mobility, right? And some of it has to do with the neurological system. And personally, because I have epilepsy, I find myself wondering if that is something that contributes to this tightness in my lower body, specifically, all of the musculature and in my feet and toes. And the seventh reason why we can't squat is terrible technique. So check this article out: skillofstrength.com, why you can't squat. It's got some great links, some great information there. And basically, you know, why we can't squat is, oh, you know what? I didn't even share that screen. So I'm sitting here talking, thinking that I'm sharing the screen, but I didn't do that. I'm glad I learned this now before we get into this. But basically, why we can't squat, why I can't squat, why you can't squat if you're in the same boat, is because we have spent too much time sitting in a chair, and we're not engaging our bodies in the physical activities that normal humans usually do. And And this restriction in movement decreases our ability to do and engage in these natural movements like the full squat, the Asian squat, the deep squat, the primal squat, Slavic squat, the whatever you want to call it, right? So, so what do we do about this? Okay, first of all, I think what's worth mentioning and doing is going back in memory lane, down memory lane a little bit, and explaining why this is such of a fascination to me. Okay, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing this, but I think there are some things here that are interesting and worth pointing out, and it kind of goes back to high school days, you know, weight room, football, and I could never properly do a barbell squat. And there were guys that I mean that were just amazing athletes, you know, kids that could bench press 450 pounds, that could squat 650 pounds. And these guys weren't like, you know, uh tough man type guys. I can think of one of these guys' names. Shout out to Chris Knack. This kid was a stud, um, and he was basically like my size, but just shredded, pure muscle. And another dude was Chris School, and he was, but he had a very different power lifter type body structure, very short, stocky, compact, short legs. But Chris Knack was just kind of a normal build, but he had this range of motion. And when I was, anyways, I always had to put plates underneath my ankles to raise my ankles to get there, and I could still never really fully engage in that movement. Fast forward a few years, um, I engaged in the corporate world, got out of physical activity, gained a lot of weight, well over 100 pounds from my current state now, and ultimately didn't really think a whole lot about physical activity and didn't really do anything about it until I was out west in California about 10 years ago, where I decided that it was time to get moving. It was time to get active. And I was going to run a marathon, right? I was going to run a marathon. And part of the reason why I was going to run a marathon was because Dave Ramsey ran a marathon. And if this, chubby, middle-aged, bald guy that rants and raves about money management on the radio could do it, then you know what? Why can't I? So I started training and running a marathon, and I scaled up over the course of a year. And all of this, began about 10 years ago. Ran a few 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, did a few of those obstacle course, Spartan type. It was not a Spartan race, but they were like knockoff, those types of races. It wasn't really my thing, but they were kind of fun. But it was all in an effort to get out and get active and do things. And so in my training, and this was also when I started experimenting with getting off social media and getting out and engaging in the real world, meeting people on meetup.com, doing at this time I was in California and I was doing beach runs, barefoot runs on the beach with people. But no matter where you are, you can get out with people, do trail runs, runs in the city. There's no excuses to not connect with people, and you don't have to join a gym and pay a lot of money, like CrossFit. There's ways to do this on the cheap. So, no excuses. And we're going to get to ways to improve your movement here towards the end of the show, when I share with you what I'm actively doing. But for the sake of time, let's move on. I met a running partner who helped me train for, and she ran this marathon with me. And at that time, she was big into stretching, and she was always doing squats, like these body weight squats, just like almost obsessively. And her name was Linda. And shout out to Linda. Um, she was a uh, big also a big inspiration to me to learn more about this and do these things. And I realized that I just had a lot of problems doing it. So I, you know, around, this time, I'm running in early 2013. I'm learning more about squatting. And at this point, I learn about the squatty potty, right? And I learn about a number of things. Uh, I start making notes. I start learning about movement. Okay. And what happens is what I'm learning about is I'm learning about things like this. I'm learning about Unglue That Heel Cord by Kelly Kelly Starrett. I'm learning about, the mobile who he's got, the mobility wad workout of the day. And for a while I was into CrossFit, right? And I was exploring options with that and exploring why I had tight ankles. And there's, you know, both of these, I think, I don't know what the ready state is, but you can learn more. I'll link to some of these articles as well. Um, there were also, you know, this is kind of where I was at in 2013, 2014. I'm learning about these things. I got away from it for a few years, and then down the road, I end up learning about, well, I also learned around at that time the Uncaged Human, Jonathan Mead, who had put together a good series on mobility, squatting, and hanging. And I'll check out his YouTube, or I'll link to his YouTube channel here, Uncaged Human, so you can see that. All right. And this is um, he's got a video that I will link to, which is a squat mobility routine. Okay, and this was helpful for me back in the day, and it's a 12-minute routine that you can move through, and you know it's just got some, you can anyways, check it out. I'll link to it, and it will help you with your movement. Okay, I also learned about MoveNat. Okay, a few years later, I stumbled across this, and this was again a focus on sitting. Why is it bad for you? No, it's not necessarily bad, but sitting in chairs. So this, this got me thinking about a lot of things, about a lot of movement, and quite frankly, I just lost track of movement for a while. Focus when life happens on life's terms. One of the things that oftentimes ends up being sacrificed is our physical health and our physical wellness. And that's why I've never really made progress with, you know, working through this squat and being able to actually get deep and somewhat comfortable in it until recently. And am I there? Can I do it? Like the cover photo in the episode? No. Am I more comfortable in that position than I was 12 months ago? You bet. Can I do it considerably better than I could 10 years ago? 100%. Now, why have I made the progress in the movement that I've made over the past 12 months, and specifically, over the past, yeah, let's just say 12 months, consistency. Now, I've done all this stuff in the past, but it hasn't been until recently where I've been consistent with this movement practice where I've been able to experience results. And that's because, our bodies and our muscles, when we work out, like we can do things, we're capable of doing amazing things. Like you are capable of doing amazing things. And you can do that and you can achieve results if you do those things and do them consistently. And in the past, I've done that and achieved results. And then when I've achieved those results, I've really, I slacked off and then took it easy. And a lot of the work that I did to get there, I ended up l- losing a lot of that progress. And, with things like flexibility and mobility, consistency is really key. So if you want to improve this movement, here are some resources that you can learn about. Okay. Um, and I guess like one thing that I learned about was um this guy. Okay. What's his name? Um Ben oh geez, I should probably Ben Patrick. Um creator of ATG, and I don't even know what that means. I mean, he's got great content and ass to grass. Okay, I guess. Uh, but Ben Patrick is the knees over toes guy, and I guess he's got some controversial movement stuff. But anyways, he's a smart guy, and you can see here that there is some incredible information about why you can't move and what you can do to change it. Okay. He ends with saying, "You're not lazy, you're not fragile, you are more powerful than you know." And this is great. Another great resource on why you can't squat and how you can squat is this guy. I forget his name, but he has a YouTube channel called Upright Health, and how to Asian squat, 3 exercises you need. Now, this is all great. This is all wonderful. And I think it's great to take in information. I think it's great to learn. I think it's wonderful to absorb all the information and learn all the things and listen to all the podcasts, and it's great to just be a sponge and take in all the information. What are you doing with it? Like what are we doing with it? Right? A couple years ago, my cousin Russ came into town and visited, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. And Russ is a real active guy, and we were talking about movement and stuff at this time as well. And he said motion is lotion. And I already talked about consistency, but how, what's a good way to be consistent with your movement routines? Okay. Well, one good way that you can, you know, be consistent with movement routines is doing them daily. Well, how do you do them? Like, okay, easier said than done, Rob, right? Easier said than done. I know. I know. It is easier said than done. Um, so how do you start? Where do you begin? Okay. Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes? Okay. You you have 5 minutes. Okay? So one of the things that you can do is a follow along um video. Whoa, is you can do a follow along video, right? I'm just going to show you the whole thing here because these have been super, super helpful in my own, journey of flexibility and mobility. I started with this one 5-minute mobility routine. These are all follow along videos. They're very easy. You don't need any equipment. At, if you have a couple yoga blocks, that is helpful because they're helpful for me. So consider that, but you don't need a yoga strap. If you have a mat or something, have a comfortable surface. And if you don't even have yoga blocks, improvise. Use a couple chunks of wood, cut a couple of 2x4s, whatever. You just need something to give yourself a little extra strength, and it doesn't need to be fancy. Okay. But this 5-minute mobility routine is something I started doing in the mornings upon waking. And after doing that every day for a few weeks, I began feeling better. I began doing this one 15 minutes, a beginner stretch flexibility routine. This was a good one to transition into. Okay. And there are more than 50 of these follow along videos. They're very easy to follow along with. There's nice background music. They're very calming. This guy Tom Merrick on YouTube has he's from England. From what part I don't know. Uh, his channel's called The Body Weight Warrior, and he's just got great content. So once you're comfortable with 15 minutes, you can then step it up and do some. It's this particular one doesn't show. There's the ones that I do regularly. This is the one I did this morning, 15-minute morning flexibility routine. There's also a number of specific workouts that you can do if you want to focus on your squat, for example, or your hip mobility. These are all things that contribute to your squat. So, what I'm trying to do during the day is begin with a 15-minute stretch routine, take some point in time during the day, do a, maybe a 22-minute full body mobility routine in the evenings. These 25-minute relaxed evening flexibility routines are great. If 25 minutes is too much, there is a relaxing evening flexibility routine that is 14 minutes long. I did that last night. Wouldn't you know it? I slept better than I have been. I've been having problems sleeping. So, I think one thing that's worth pointing out is that flexibility, mobility, it's good for your overall wellness. One of the things that we end up doing to improve our flexibility, because a lot of it is tied to our brain, is to achieve success with these stretches. We hold them for long periods of time and breathe and relax. And I believe what we're trying to do is engage our parasympathetic nervous system. I don't know, but I'm learning, and you can learn more too. But again, I would really encourage you to check out those follow along routines by Tom Merrick. There's more than 50 of them. And you can start with the very first one, that 5 minute morning mobility routine. You can do it. It's, you can, it's, it's simple. It's not easy, but you can do it. And man, it's going to suck when you first start. It really is. Um, but be consistent with it and give it some time. And, consider checking out some of those other things like the natural movement, the MoveNat PDF. It's got some great information about, why sitting is what it is. And look, I sit, but you may notice that like I'm standing right now. Luckily, I was able to source a cool electric standing sitting desk on the Facebook marketplace a while back for a good price. And, I'm able to stand and sit and balance that along with the inclusion of these follow along routines with my day. And I would encourage you to do the same. So, over the course of the day, you may not even be stretching for an hour, once you really get into things. And I wish that I had more time to do this, but between balancing things like content creation, food production in the kitchen, old time music, which is, a newfound love of mine that I'm truly embracing again as I prepare to go to Cliff Top next year with Guy and Lenny. More on that later, but that is a thing I've committed to. And you know, but I feel better when I do these things consistently. And speaking of feeling better when doing things consistently, Wayne out there in the audience and in the Telegram group, he's very active there. Wayne's also got some content of his own that he's creating. You should check it out, the Flagged Route podcast. He's got a cool job doing utility locates, marking lines, and things like that. That is a world that I am somewhat familiar with back in the days of utility forestry and doing work planning along transmission lines. Um, I'm I'm familiar with a lot of the things that he talks about, and some of the stories that he shares strikes a chord with me. So, I'm excited to hear that he's taken the steps to create his own podcast, create his own website, and check it out. It's the Flagged Route podcast. Um, but, in addition to doing cool work, the whole point of bringing up Wayne, shout out to Wayne out there, the whole point of bringing all that up and bringing Wayne up is he mentioned that he is making a concerted effort to eat less gas station snacks and eat more fruit. I think he's been eating cantaloupe and apples, whatever he's eating, bananas, good for you, Wayne. But he said he's been eating that, you know, fruit or healthy snacks, cheese, berries, stuff like that, instead of gas station snacks for several days. And he's surprised at how much better he feels. So, again, there's something to be said for consistency. And that is how you can change your deep squat. If you can't do it and you want to do it better, and, you know, maybe you don't want to do it better. Well, why should, like, what the hell? Why should I squat more? Why, like, what's the point? It's good for us. Like, it's a natural movement. It's a human movement. And doing these things is good. And whether we spend our time sitting and now, you know, before I used to spend a lot of time walking and I thought, I was good. I was in good shape. I was very active. Admittedly, I put on a few pounds over the past few months, but I spend a lot of time like this, you know, working in repetitive motions like this. And Cody and I talked about repetitive motions the other day in the interview that I put out on Tuesday when we spoke Saturday morning about while food production, or at least the gathering of resources is a natural activity, the 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 agriculture movements that are required of the human body are unnatural. So he does a lot of physical activity to counter that. And I think what most of us need to do that, aren't engaging in that, market growing activity, market gardening activity, who are, sort of doing more normal things like sitting a lot or standing a lot or working in a warehouse or a factory or, just whatever we're doing that's or spending a lot of time behind the wheel and then walking. Like, we may be active, but we're not really using our bodies to the full extent that we can and to the full extent that we should. And learning how to and improving our, this Asian squat, this deep squat, this full squat, this Slavic squat, whatever you want to call it, is a great step in the right direction to beginning uh, to move like a natural human. And I would definitely encourage you to do that. And with that, guys, that about wraps up today's show. I would again encourage you to check out the show notes for links to everything that was discussed today. And or as much as I can squeeze in there that was discussed today, because we discussed a lot. Um, we discussed a lot on tight ankles, how to unglue that heel cord. Kelly Starrett, I don't know. He's a great resource. Jonathan Mead with Uncaged Human. A lot of his content is difficult to find now because he's kind of changed what he's doing and rebranded, but he's still got a lot of great content on YouTube. And then, Upright Health has a lot of information on movement and just human physiology and mobility. So that's a great resource. And again, Tom Merrick with the Bodyweight Warrior and the follow along routines is, I think, for me right now, the best resource, the one that I'm most actively using, the one that's available for free. And I would definitely encourage you to check out those videos. So I will be sure to link to this. And like I said, as much as everything else is possible. So, guys, have a wonderful day. I sure do appreciate you listening and keep moving. And like my cousin Russ said, motion is lotion. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.